All right. Happy New Year, everyone. We did it. We got through 2020 together. And to say the least, 2020 was a very interesting and trying year. But with hope on the horizon and family and friends by our sides, we're ready to venture boldly into 2021. I'm so grateful for your support. You know, when we set out to do this podcast, I had no idea what I was doing, really what we would talk about, what kind of people would want to be on the show. And man, we've been overwhelmed by the quality of guests, the friends that I've made, the conversations we've had, and the feedback from you. So thank you so much for that. And hope you'll stick with us for 2021. We're going to have more great conversations. We're going to dive a little more into like kind of our process here at New Legend, into the trucks. We want to do more of the history of, I'd like to understand more of the history of the Bronco, how it developed, the history of the Wagoneer, the FJs, all that kind of good stuff. I'm kind of fascinated by all those things. And all the surrounding, supporting things that are really important about the kind of vintage 4x4 culture, getting outdoors, camping with family and friends. That's my goal, really, and why we do the show is to inspire and equip you guys to not only work on your trucks and be a part of meaningful community, but also to, play a tiny role in inspiring you to get out and go camping, go adventuring, go exploring with your family and friends. It's really, really valuable stuff. So this episode, I'm so stoked to kick off this new year with an episode with a friend of mine, Braden Jones. Braden is a real Renaissance man, family man, entrepreneur, just a top shelf human being. And so we had a great conversation, great chat, and I hope that you enjoy this episode. Thanks again for listening, and let's get after it in 2021. This episode is sponsored by our friends at Kenda Tire. We've been working together and they've supported our movement and our industry for over 3 years now with us directly. And we're just so grateful for that. And those are the brands that we want to support and get behind. They have great products, really innovative products, and solid people. And I know you're probably tired of hearing me talk about the Cleaver RT and now their brand new AT2, but they are both very, very good tires. And we've put them through their paces, and we will continue to put them through their paces. This year, we have a lot of trips planned, getting back out on the roads, tackling highways, rocks, trails, mud, sand, and more. And really, man, if you think about it, tires are the most impactful upgrade you can make as far as safety, performance, reliability to your rig. So thank you, Kenda Tire. Go check them out if you need tires for the rig, for the car, or the wife's Suburban, whatever, man, they got it covered. So go check out Kenda Tire. Check out the RT and the AT. And also for 2021, our friends at Free Spirit Recreation are back sponsoring this podcast. So thank you, FSR. They really have game changer tents, man, with fresh thinking and innovative high quality design. The new Evolution, for example, is the real deal. Super fast setup. It's a hard shell tent with room for the blankies to be kept inside. So really cool, man. We had a chance in 2020 to get it out on a couple trips and check it out. And so far, it's been my favorite tent. But there's different tents for different purposes. So come check them out or come to the shop over here in Iowa. You can take a nap in one and see if a rooftop tent is for you. They're a lot of fun, and they do solve a lot of adventure comfort problems. So do yourself a favor, go check out Free Spirit Recreation, go FSR. And FSR, thanks for being on the team and for making great products. All right, welcome back to the show. Today I'm here with a good friend, Braden Jones. What's up, buddy?
How are you?
Good. So we're here in his little studio. Is that what we call this?
I think it's a man cave, yeah.
Man cave, okay,
studio,
awesome.
Yeah.
And so we'll just jump right into it. There's a lot of things I want to talk to you, and I never prepare the guests, so Braden has no idea what we're going to talk about. Mm-hmm. But we have spent some time together, and so I've picked up on some cues of things I wanted to talk about. But first and foremost, let's jump right in. Do you consider yourself a serial entrepreneur, just an entrepreneur? 'Cause you've had quite a few endeavors.
I've had a lot of businesses. It's funny. I don't really use the word entrepreneur that much. I don't know why. When people ask, so I just kind of say I start businesses, but
right.
Sell businesses. Yeah.
Because from what I know of you, I think the entrepreneur is a good definition because you're more into just like starting things and seeing opportunity, coalescing opportunity. Then like, I was passionate about building this widget and I built this widget and I did that for 30 years, which is still entrepreneurial, but like someone who starts businesses.
Yeah. So like, I think from an early age, I wanted to start businesses. I actually didn't know what it was called. I just wanted to start businesses.
Yeah.
And, in fact, went to college. I didn't even know then like what that was called. Sorry, it's so loud out here.
That's all right, man. It's all right.
But I always like, even from a young age, 18, 19, I just wanted to start businesses. And I thought the creative side of starting a business, there is a super creative side to start a business, rather than just the kind of the dry numbers, finance and everything else. So that interested me. It kind of came down to deciding, and this sounds premature, but like in high school, how do I gain the most time? Right. So if time is money, then money is time. Right. And you can't buy time. You can't pay somebody for more of it. Right? You got a limited amount and we don't know what that is. So, but for me, it was time and time off. So how do we get time off? How do we get the freedom of time to do what we want to do?
So this in high school, you had an idea of this.
Yeah. Wow. So I thought, I don't want to be. My dad was my mom and dad both amazing people, but they had normal jobs, right? They had 9 to 5s, and so this was the late 90s, and I was like, I don't know if I want that. That like kills my heart, kills my soul a little bit.
Right.
Like, and it's not, and I love the fact that there are 9 to 5 jobs and all that, and I'll take one any day of the week if I have to. But like, how do I not get tied into that? And so there's a couple ideas. One is go work for the Forest Service or something, right?
Yep.
Just be outside or do something outside, or create a business or income where you can kind of get out there and have the time and the time to travel too. So time for me was freedom of time to do what I want to do with who I want to do it with, and also to travel. So we do a ton of traveling, and that kind of allowed us, like, that was it. Like, we just want to travel, and it could be domestic or international or wherever.
Yeah, that's interesting because I think I'm kind of similar, maybe not with that intentionality of creating time, but more for me, I think it was about integration, like about just like everything I do is integrated with each other, like from friendships to business. It's all kind of but it's also like a mess.
Yeah, total mess.
Where like there is something about the 9 to 5 that is simple, because my dad was a machinist his whole life, and like one thing I remember distinctly about my dad growing up was he never took his work home with him. When he took his like dickies off, he was like
done
in dad mode, work around the house mode, go play on his boat mode. So it's interesting. It's I think there's just depends on the type of person you are and how you're wired.
That's loud, huh?
Well, we'll deal with it. Okay, so you have a family, and I want to get into that. More into you used the word when we were surfing the other day, the manifesto, and I don't know if there's more to that, but I'm going to dig into that. But first, you have behind us is Synchro. What year is it?
87 Synchro Westphalia.
With a engine swap.
So I bought it with a 2.1, which comes in all these, and rode that thing for a while. And then I'd say 3 years ago, got the 1.8 turbo. So it's a VW engine. GTI or Jetta, I think. Super common. And there's a guy out of Sacramento that makes all these harnesses and everything else. So, and so we bought into it. And it's actually California smog legal.
That's awesome.
Which is good.
And so how many years did you mob it before you did the swap?
Probably, so I bought So I've had a ton of vans. This one I bought though. This is my first Synchro.
Okay.
And it was like, the unicorn where you...
The unicorn, the Westphalia Synchro.
I know, in white.
In white,
So I was like...
yeah.
So we found it. I found it 11 years ago. So
that's
I
a
think
while.
12 years ago, maybe, yeah. And it was... and I bought it sight unseen. It was in the weeds, and it was up in Bainbridge or near Bainbridge Island,
wow.
up in Washington.
Yeah,
and I saw just a post, like
this is Craigslist days.
It's like Craigslist, or I can't. I think it might have been like a Go Westy.
Okay, yeah.
Listing or something like that, and I'd been just searching. I've been hunting. At the time, I owned a '91 Westphalia 2-wheel drive, and we've been looking for something like this. And this one was up there, and it was like, again, it looked pretty bad shape just because it was literally in the weeds.
Yeah.
And it looked like I couldn't even tell. You couldn't even tell it was a Synchro.
Really?
Yeah.
Did it have I bought a lot of Scouts out of the Pacific Northwest, and sometimes they're covered in like lichen and moss and all that kind of stuff.
Like it had tinted windows that were like the bad peeling kind, that bubbled. It had moss on all the. In fact, there's still a little bit of rust on the front windshield from it.
Yeah,
but it just sat in the rain, and it came from a cool family that had it. They wanted to, they were done with it. I guess their kids had grown up, and so I emailed him and I said, hey, I'm just super interested in this. And I think it was $12,000 at the time.
Really, which is that's a decent amount.
It's a decent amount
for that time.
Yeah, and I think the average at that time was maybe 18 or 19 they were going for, and so it was still a good enough price for me to be like, okay, let me go.
So this market, like just real quick, the Vanagon market, and we've done an episode with my buddy Jay on kind of the history of this. This is like kind of some of the breaking down the Vanagon community, but they've been. Because 12 years ago, you could get a Scout for like $500.
Yeah.
So they've been kind of desirable for a while.
Yeah. Yeah, they have been. It's weird. And I think they went really high in price over the last, I'd say maybe peaked. I would even say peaked in price probably 2 years ago, 3 years ago. And I think the Sprinter, we could talk about that, but like the Sprinter market kind of affected this.
Yeah.
But really, this was the only thing on the market besides Sportsmobile that you could get into for a reasonable price.
And camping, kind of be like turnkey, ready to roll.
Yeah, whereas like Sportsmobiles
during
that time were 50 to 100.
Right.
So it allowed you to get into it.
Sticker on it that's like one less Sprinter.
Yeah, a buddy of mine put that on there. So.
Well, and I do want to talk about that. So, okay, and you also have like a Doka.
Yeah.
Which is, explain that to us.
So that's a Doka's a truck version of this, and they never brought them to the U.S. So anyone that you see here was brought over. And
is that the single cab or the double cab?
So they make both. I've got the double cab.
And both are considered Dokas.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. 3-door. So they made a bunch of different types, but mine is a 3-door Synchro Doka. And it's an 89. So it's 4-wheel drive.
Really? Oh,
and
wow.
It's great.
That's
cool.
I
love it. And so I got it from Sweden. Bought that one sight unseen as well.
Yeah.
Buddy of mine who was over there knows a bunch of people who's been kind of collecting them and sent me some photos. And he's like, yeah, here's one. He sent me pictures of 3.
Okay.
And I was like, I'll get the white one, of course.
Nice.
It goes well with.
And it worked out?
Yeah. No, it worked out great. Yeah, I actually got it here. The funny part is we got it here, got it into San Francisco off the container and brought it down here. And it wasn't running great. Like I would be driving it and the engine would just die. Couldn't figure it out. Did a tune up on it. Tried to do the plugs, do the distributor, everything. Spent maybe $100 or a little bit more on it. No big deal. It still wasn't working properly. And a buddy of mine said, "Why don't you?" He said it might be the idle. I think it was the idle control unit.
Yeah.
Or the ignition control unit. One of these. I forget what it was, but I said it's not that. It can't be that. And he's like, no. He's like, you could try it. So I bought one, and it was $20 or $25 or something. And it was a fuse, and I plugged it in, and it idled perfectly, and it ran, and it never shut off again. So I think the guy that sold it thought that it needed a whole engine replaced, but it was just that.
And I've noticed from just again being around Jay, the Vanagons are like they're kind of like high maintenance a little bit.
Oh, super high maintenance. Yeah, you get exhausted. I mean, Scouts are probably the same in a way, unless you replace.
Yeah, they're different in that, like, I mean, so most of these are fuel injected, right? Post like 87. 80. 80. No, yeah. I mean, water cooled up until 80. I mean, air cooled until up to 84. Okay.
And then Synchro. I think Synchros. They started putting Synchro conversions in 86.
Okay.
Up to 91, and then they stopped making them.
Yeah. So I think the difference would be this has like kind of primitive fuel injection, which makes it run good when it runs. You know, like Scouts are carbureted, so there's more hassle to deal with that, but they'll run poorly, like pretty reliably, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like you can have them like barely start, but you still can get them home. And so that's the big question I want to ask is, what about, you brought up the Synchro. There are certainly, so like I think both of us, we love to travel. I pulled up in my 91 Suburban. It is swapped.
Yeah.
But there's like, it's not as comfortable as a brand new Suburban. It's there's a number of things that you have to sacrifice to have especially in the context, and this is why I think the question is really valid for you, because you're not just like taking this to the beach. This is like the family adventure mobile.
Oh yeah.
Right. So that's like next level stuff that I love seeing people aspire to and I don't know, deal with. But like, what is it about this platform about like, these are kind of vintage in my opinion, like a classic vehicle or a vintage 4x4 that makes it worth the sacrifice? Because I'm sure we've talked about this, like it's very tempting to go, like there's tons of sprinters around here.
Oh yeah.
And like you've probably been tempted more than once to go like, dang it, I'm just gonna go get it. Like when the 1.8
I think
engine blew up.
Yeah, recently.
I'm just gonna go get a Sprinter.
I'm exhausted from the fixes. But, but I've never really, and I don't know if I'm in that phase where I don't really want a Sprinter right now. I mean, I could be later. But for us, I mean, everybody, I've got friends with both Sprinters and the vans, and they have them for different reasons. And I think that's good. I think that's, that's fine. For us though, we just love the vintage part of it, and we always have. Like I got my first van, first Westphal actually when I was 18, and rode across America with my brother and my best friend, and I thought this is the ultimate vehicle. Like I'm not turning back, and I'll always have one. I think there's one point in my life where I sold one and I didn't have another van. Yeah. And it lasted like 6 months, and I was just on the hunt, and I finally got one. But other than like my whole driving career, I've always had one. Yeah. It's just what it is. So yeah, it's soul. I think that people say like if they pull up in a Sprinter, it just lacks a soul. Yeah. I think that's a big thing. We love it. We love the way it looks. It's ugly. It's kind of pretty, and it's high maintenance, and and that's also part of it too. I've realized as I'm getting older, like something will always go wrong on a trip, right? Yes. But it's also how you deal with it, because I've dealt with it poorly in the past. Like when you're in the middle of Montana and something goes wrong and you've got to fix it. Who do you call, or do you have the right tools, or do you keep your cool? Sometimes I don't. Right. Sometimes I just get frustrated. I'm like, I just, I hate this thing. But recently I've tried to keep my cool, and it's basically because of my kids. Yeah. And then how do you deal with... To model to them? Yeah. Yeah. And so how do you show them, like, you could go out and have an adventure, have a great time, and then when something goes wrong, still get home and still be safe and still keep your cool. Right. I love that. And I think that you don't get that opportunity in a Sprinter or anything modern. Yeah, it's true. Like just on the drive out, we were just moving my daughter to California. Yeah. And she has a 1991 Volvo 240 wagon. That was a fun story in and of itself. We came to California. She's like, I want a 240 wagon. She had a 740 wagon, but it wasn't as cool as a 240. So she's like, I want a 240. So I'm like, okay, sweetie. Well, we don't want to buy a clapped out rusty one in the Midwest. So we flew out to California with a one-way ticket and $1,000. Nice.
And we're like, we're going to drive home in a Volvo.
That's rad.
And so we spent like 3 or 4 days, and she's 17.
That's awesome.
Just looking for this car, and we found the right one, and we drove it home. Like, the harmonic balancer fell off in Ventura. Leo actually fixed it.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And then I can't remember. There was the ball joints were shot. He's like, dude, don't drive this thing home. We'll be like, we'll be fine. Tie rod ends and ball joints. So, but just coming out now, spent a year in the Midwest now driving back out. There was 2 brake hard lines that were rubbing together. And so I noticed, I'm in the habit, if you own a Scout or your Westphalia, I don't know if you do this, but like when I get gas on a long road trip, I always look underneath the vehicle to see what's dripping.
To see what is, not if. Right?
And I see this like clear fluid on the passenger side, like this bit, like this, like 12 inches in diameter, really quick. I'm like, oh, crud.
And it is obviously coming from...
It was like brake fluid, because nothing's on the passenger side. Like the only line is like where a transmission line was
feeling
running.
Squishy brakes?
Not yet, because I guess it just happened, and we were in, I don't know. I think we're in El Paso or somewhere like that. And so it was great, man. My son is 15, and I'm like, all right, Owen, how are we gonna rig this? Because I'm not gonna go buy flaring tools, and like I just don't have those kind of tools, and we don't have the time. Duct tape. We did.
No, did you?
At first I was thinking like, let's take a soda immediately, like. Yeah. Soda, like I'll take an aluminum can, I'll wrap that around the portion of the brake hard line with a hole in it, and then I'll put a fuel line over that, and then I'll put hose clamps over that. And I couldn't find the soda. I don't know. It like wasn't convenient to find a can of soda. Yeah. And I didn't feel like shotgunning one, so I just did some duct tape, which maybe is a mistake, but I wrapped it in duct tape, put a fuel line over it, a fuel injection fuel line, cut it, put it over 4 hose clamps. It's like not leaking at all.
Is it still there?
It's still there. Well, we just got here. So but it was the same exact point. Yeah. I like typically I would get fired up. I think the older I get, and with my son, I'm like, I want him to go, we can fix anything. Like we could do it. Yeah. And so just echoed that.
Yeah, and I think somebody told me that. I didn't make that up, but they did. Somebody a long time ago was like, it's about how you deal with the situation when you're in it. Yeah. That your kids are watching. And I was like, oh, well, I've kind of blown it in the past a little bit. Probably.
It's true, because if you just freak out.
You do. And it's, especially when you have your wife and your kids, and you're usually in a place that, is not convenient to camp, or there's no mechanics or anything, or parts even. And so, and guaranteed it's not if, it's when, right? So like this last trip, we lost an engine. And that's a big thing to lose, right? That's a bearing to go out, especially with this motor, which only had 50,000 miles on it.
Yeah, which is kind of weird.
Yeah, it is weird, and it was a rebuild in the engine. Like we got the, it is what it is. I don't know why it's a bearing that went out, and we had enough oil. It wasn't overheating. I don't know why it happened, but it did, and we were close enough to home. We had gone 50 days this summer on a road trip, and
in this rig.
Yeah, and that's pretty common. We'll go
50 days. Dude, that's an epic trip.
Yeah, no, we've gone
just all around the lower 48.
Yeah, so last year we did this trip. 2019 we went up from here to through Nevada, Oregon, Washington, or I'm sorry, Idaho, and then went into Canada and went up to. Just kind of deep into the glacier and the Rockies and everything.
Dude,
and had a blast.
Awesome,
just blew our mind. Yeah. And we maybe took 30 days or so, 40 days to do that one. Came back and came south along the coast. This year, because of COVID, we were planning on doing another trip, but not like that. We were planning probably to Europe or something fun and adventurous with the kids, because our kids are getting older and we want to soak up that time, right? And with COVID, we didn't know, and so we're like, we can't plan anything, and so let's just plan another road trip, which is fine. We do a couple big ones a year, and so we could take time off. They were in summer. We've got this business. Danae's not working right now. So we just kind of had an open end, like whenever we get bored, we'll come home, sort of thing. And since
I love that,
I know, and the kids were like, "Yes, let's do
this." Did that
this.
change the trip? Because like sometimes when you, like most of our trips are like the max trip will take us 7 to 9 days because it's just hard to be away from the shop. And but that pressure, then you start to go like, okay, we got to go here, then we got to go here, and you kind of overly plan the trip. So having a little like an open-ended mindset, did that change? Like, hey, let's just go.
It did, but we're kind of used to that. Danae, what we'll do is we'll plan a few things like, okay, in 7 days we'll be at this place, and we'll book something, or we'll book a hotel, or we'll stay with some friends. That's gotten, that used to be like every 3 days we'd have kind of a light agenda. Now it's gotten to 7. Now it's gotten to like weeks where we get lost, or we can get lost.
That's so cool,
and end up like, oh, we like this area, let's stay here for a couple extra days, or let's take a dirt road, or and a lot of times we'll have even rough plans like, okay, we'll get to Glacier, and we like a couple years ago we got to Glacier and didn't love it. It's too crowded. Did a couple hikes, felt like Disneyland a little bit. And so we planned on staying a couple days there and didn't. We ended up getting up to the Rockies and getting a loan, and ended up staying for instance, we stayed at this hotel, this old 200-year hotel, something like that,
cool, man. Wow.
up in Canada randomly. And we met this guy the morning we were leaving. Met this guy who had a Westphalia, Canadian guy, and he's like, "You guys got to take this dirt road, and you got to,
I love that.
And we thought, all right, we had no plans. We had no plans that morning, and all of a sudden we're on this dirt road for 4 days.
Wow.
I think from pretty much the border to, is it Banff? No, yeah, Banff. Is that right?
Yeah, it's up there.
So it was just dirt roads, like old oil roads or logging roads or something. And we just camped out the whole time and had no agenda.
Do you find a mix up like hotel to like a couple days in the van?
Yeah. A good shower.
Yeah.
Is good every 4 days.
I think that's a really quick little advice for those of you that are getting into adventuring with a family.
Yeah.
I think with dudes, like there's probably, or like if there's a group of women, but like when there's a family structure, I've found that to be really important too. Don't like overdo the camping, especially if it's primitive. It's one thing if you can go to like Faria and there's like a nice bathroom, like shower setup, but I've done it like where I pushed a couple of trips like too far. We went like 2 or 3 days backpacking and then 2 or 3 days primitive camping. It's like, no, we needed a break. Like,
you need a break. You need to change it up, a good hot meal.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's very first world of us, but it's like,
I know,
but it is true. And it's Danae, I would say, is good with that too. She's great with outdoor, like, just roughing it. And we got 2 boys and we love just jumping in rivers though, if we need to clean off or cool down or something. But, it's good. And they enjoy it's always good every once in a while to just veg out in front of, I hate to say it, but like, on a bed, in a comfortable bed in a hotel, in a hotel room.
That's a fair rhythm, man.
Reset a little bit, and then you're on the road again.
That's right.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that.
I love that. Okay, so let's dig in. I want to get back to some of the family stuff, but you currently have been running Synchro Fest. So tell us a little bit about Synchro Fest. And how, like, kind of your experience with it, and like now, kind of some of your vision for it.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah. So Synchro Fest is an event that is an annual event, and it's at Hollister, California. Hollister Hills,
great
California.
place.
You've been up there?
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Tons.
So there's tons of trails. They're all kind of marked. Like you would have at a ski resort or something, like a green circle or
perfect
black diamond or double, whatever. And it's super gnarly. Like there's some Truck Hill and a few other like major
tank trap.
Yeah, and there's some serious vehicles up there. But every year during end of April, early May, for the last, that's actually, I think this year was our 10-year anniversary. We had to skip it because of the COVID. But before that, there was a Synchro de Mayo.
Yeah,
as well.
Okay. So I remember that.
Yeah, so there was some overlap. I don't know how many years that went. And then there was actually an overlap year where both of them happened at the same time, which was awkward. But basically, it's just a community event. We've got 200, usually between 200 and 350 people that show up.
Awesome.
We've got tons of vans.
And it's limited.
It is a limited, yeah. So
to Vanagons, not like it doesn't have to be synchros.
No, it could be Vanagons, and it could be, it's mostly, I mean, if it's VW anything really, but it's usually vans, and 99% of it's this type, this T3. And then I would say even that the majority are 2-wheel drive vehicles that go up there, and it's just a big camp out. And we just kind of take over a camp spot for Wednesday through Sunday and have a blast. And it's all just community based and
not super expensive.
No, I think last year was like, I think we said like $95 or something
awesome.
like that.
Yeah,
there's a big community dinner we have.
And
there's events, there's contests, there's trophies, and we have tons of sponsors.
Yep.
So everybody in the industry who does stuff for these things, whether they do conversions or parts or suspension or whatever, they chip in and we actually get a lot of cool prizes and and everybody has a good time.
I appreciate that. I think that's I like getting, because you think like, oh, we're just commercializing the event, but they're a part of the community. Like,
totally.
Like the community would be hurting without any people that
don't
care.
Create.
Like create parts and knowledge and all that kind of stuff. So you mentioned the word community. How have you seen that to be like important in general? Like, kind of take a snapshot of our society where we're at. And I guarantee you at Synchro Fest, there's not all one political party or the other. There's probably a really diverse group of people.
Super diverse.
So how important are events like that in creating unity in our society and just that kind of helping to benefit culture? Yeah,
that's a good question. I mean, the weird thing is with the vans is that the people who have the vans is probably with any old car or any like passion.
Definitely
is that you have people that come from all walks of life, and then they come in and during that walk, like when I got my first van at 19, I was a certain type of person. Now I'm in my 40s and I'm a certain type of person, but I've had that van through this stretch, and so I've awesome, changed, man. Right? I've hopefully grown And so you have all these people in the walks of life, whether they're, political party or whether they're rich or poor or how they got their van or they just bought it. I mean, they could just go out and buy one of these and not have any history, right? So versus people that have spent everything on it and their whole life with them. So it comes down to community. And I think it's important. It's always been important. So there's tons of events like this that people feel part of the community, whether it's a micro event like this versus like a Burning Man or like a something major where people connect. But I think it's important, and everybody is just so freaking passionate about these vehicles, like the
cool,
like the Scout,
it's
or
awesome.
Like the old Broncos or whatever. But it is hilarious how nerdy it is. So my wife would not go to this event. She's never been. And I don't actually want her to go because she would get so bored. I mean, it's like festival camping. And on top of that, it's just a nerd zone. Like literally, oh, what'd you do this time? Or what, what modification do you like the best, or this or that? And, and it's hilarious. And my kids love it though. Like my kids are like knee deep in it. And they think it's a national holiday. They're like, it's right up there with Christmas, we got to do it this year. It's like,
that is funny. Cause my wife, which it does, dude. Every conversation at SyncroFest probably starts with the van.
Totally.
And that's what's unique and beautiful about the community, or about that as an entry point to relationship.
Oh, for sure.
But like, that's the point where my wife's like, here we go again. Like, want. It's like, dude, this is the best part. Like,
well, this is the best part. And it is, I mean, I won't say she would get bored, but she loves the van probably more than I do.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Cool.
But talking about it constantly is not the thing she loves about it. Right. But I would say this, that there's people that I don't see but once a year, and they come in from all over the country to this event. And like you've been through, we've all been through, it's like you're best friends once a year, or
That's right.
You
I love
connect
that.
and you're just like, man, how are you? Like, and you connect on a personal level, and you share a beer, some community food or whatever, and you just kind of bounce, and you bounce from like the way it's set up is just a free like camping area, and inside of that people make their groups, whether they come with like the San Francisco crew comes in.
Interesting.
And they kind of make their little circle of wagons, and then the Pacific Northwest guys come down and they do that and everything else, and then you kind of spread out from there. I met the best people, and they I mean, it's just, when we go on big road trips, we'll connect with them on the way.
I love that.
We're in, Montana, or we're in Wyoming,
Go
or whatever,
look up.
and
Yeah,
you just
that's
look
cool.
them up. And,
That's cool. And social media has really helped, in my opinion, enable that kind of connection. Because
for sure.
So many people at scout events, I go like, oh, that's Scout 800. That's Scouty Pippin. That's like, they call each other. They like don't even really, sometimes they don't even know their real name. They just know their handle.
I'm guilty of that. Usually. And that's a problem, actually, because at Hollister, there's no Wi-Fi. And so all the time I'm like, oh yeah, I got to go up on the hill because there's Wi-Fi on the hill because I knew somebody, but I don't know their name. So I got to go search it up real quick.
That's funny. So your friend does an event called Descend on Bend.
Yeah.
And this is, I love like when there's an eye-opening epiphany that I have around some sort of social structure or kind of sociological point of relevance. And in a video that I watched, he talked about the concept of big fire, small fire.
Yeah.
And I thought that was so profound.
Yeah.
So talk about that a little bit. What is a big fire, small fire?
Yeah. So
you kind of mentioned it a little bit. But.
Yeah. So Ryan and Dave and Gene put on Descend, and
Descend is much bigger, right?
It's gotten bigger. Yeah. It used to be a smaller event, like 20 people, 30 people.
Okay.
I forget how many people went.
It's a lot, dude. It looks big.
A lot. And it's a different event, but it's like life-changing event too. Like to me, it's a great event, and it is about the community there, and it's not just about one type of vehicle, right? It's not even like,
it's kind of like van life a little bit, right?
It is, but it's bring anything.
Bring anything.
Bring anything. And camp. And people bring the funniest stuff.
Okay.
And it's grown. His has grown quite a bit over the years. But early on, we were on the rim of I forget in Oregon, right near south of Bend. There's a big crater. Mm-hmm. And we used to camp along the rim. No longer.
Yeah, Crater Lake.
No, it's not Crater Lake, but it is. It's there's
cool.
no lake in it.
Oh, right.
It's dry.
Right. Okay.
But it's and it was probably 5 years ago now, but we were up there camping and on one of the original Descend on Bend events, and there was a massive fire. This goes back to Saturday. I think Saturday night was like the big event, and there's a big bonfire. Everybody gathers around and has a good time, and that's fine. That's great, and that's where communities are brought in. That's where people meet.
Yes.
Everybody aligns, and it's just amazing. I don't know. I don't remember. We had. I think it was that night or the night before. We had a small fire, and it was around our little group of vans, and we had maybe a dozen people there. But it kind of became, and it was, and there's a lot of memories and thoughts and conversations that are different around a small fire, and so we had this versus a large fire,
right?
Community fire. So that was the kind of the concept of small fire, and having what happens around the big fire is magic. What also happens around a smaller fire, or a smaller community of people, is also
what he said was like too, that you could tell the people that hang out at the big fire, like each night, I guess is like the newer people, because that's where you go to. Like,
oh yeah, totally.
Like the fire draws you in. It's warm. It's cool. Like you're like, and then
you kind of
especially like
orbit out,
and then next year, like then you get your like these little intimate fires. But I think that's a really good metaphor for just human relationships. That there's like certain things that are entry points for belonging and community and passion, but that's not sustainable to just be a nameless handle.
Yeah.
Like at some point you got to dig deeper. And I guarantee you the conversations around the big fire and small fire
a lot different,
morph that way, trend that way as well. They get more intimate. Like you start talking about family, you start talking about just your personal life. And I think that's a really cool thing. So, and there's
no shame in like being a part of multiple small fires.
That's
as well,
right.
Right. So you can have different conversations around different, and it's that's where the magic happens, actually.
Yeah. So I've been thinking about how to just integrate that principle into other things in life. Mm-hmm. Because you can't always have Like I'm a pretty social guy. My wife is definitely more of a small fire person.
Yeah.
I'm probably more of a little bit of both, but I like the big fire, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
But that's also not the greatest way to build relationships, like deep, meaningful relationships. But it's...
Yeah, you're probably both.
Yeah,
I'd say you're
so.
both. I'm,
Yeah.
I'm probably both. I'm probably getting more small fire as I get older.
Right, yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I
It's
get
like,
you.
okay, I just want to, if I'm going to spend time, I want to spend time with
Yeah.
a certain group.
Right.
And it's funny. I actually think because of all the lockdowns and COVID stuff going on, I think it's even become smaller this year.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, if you look around at who you spend or who you choose to spend time with, it's not because you don't like them or didn't enjoy them before, but it's just like, okay,
That's right.
I'm just going to hang out with my family.
Yeah.
Or you have to choose like, okay, I've got to hang out with the grandparents.
Right.
So we can't hang out with other people right now.
Right.
You know,
Yep.
and be responsible. But I think that's happened. I'm curious to see how that affects these events moving forward, to be honest.
Me too.
But one thing we were talking about before is if Synchro Fest doesn't happen again,
Right.
is we're tied to the state, right? It's a state campground.
Yep.
They may say no, or they may
Right.
give us regulations we just can't do. So, and we may have to skip a year. So how do we continue that event, or how do we continue the, and it's kind of a branch off the small fire thing too, is
Right.
what we're
It's
going to do.
beautiful.
Yeah. This year. So we want to now, and I talked to you about it a little bit before, but it was like, how do you do a pop like event where you just say, hey, we're all going to meet up,
Yeah.
you know, in Death Valley, you know,
So
in the
good.
middle of winter, Panamint Range or something like that, or anywhere, and just say, hey, I don't care who can make it.
Right.
It's on social media. If there's 20 vans that show up, that's great. If there's 2, that's fine. If there's
Yeah.
100, crazy, you know,
Right.
but it's not on, you know, it's maybe just a long weekend
Right.
where we can have, when it's not as organized, right? So
That's
it's
right.
not, we don't get the porta potties, we don't get
Right.
the
Just those
catering,
meetups, man,
you know, for the big dinner at night. Yeah. So it's just, but I think what's most important actually is that community.
Right.
Doesn't matter about the, you know, the other stuff really.
Yeah.
People just want to get together still.
Especially now, man. So I think that's a great idea, and I think we're gonna pursue things like that as well.
Because you do events right now that are,
Well, we have, yeah. Like, so our philosophy was like, we just see how important the community is, and like how attractive that community is to potential scout buyers. Like we want to show people that see scouts or vintage 4x4s on Instagram and go, not only are you getting a cool rig that's going to help build memories in your life and create opportunities and experiences for you that you can't have otherwise, that are difficult to have otherwise in your Honda Odyssey. Not bashing on the Odysseys. Last year it was the Toyota Sienna, so I'm just trying to shift it around. But to also, like, so we just started a new video series that's just called Meet the Community.
yeah.
And it's the same idea, but yeah, we just said like, hey, there are these catalysts they tend to be in cities, but now it's growing. This catalyst role is growing. And we already see that they're like creating these group Instagram feeds or whatever, like that are like, hey, I met this guy and I met this guy. And then we saw that they're doing these like cars and coffee.
Yeah.
But I'm like, part of the experience is doing a little bit more. That's what I think is so special with the vans is they're kind of designed around camping.
Totally.
And cars and coffee, like, it's just kind of boring to me. Like, it's important as a big fire thing.
Yeah, totally.
But let's move it into like, let's go off road. Let's eat some great food together. Let's go camping.
Yeah.
And so we just kind of partnered with local catalysts to say it's your event.
Oh.
We're just helping to bring some structure, and we're just helping to bring some energy and some recognition to it. And we did Nashville and Austin. We had LA planned, but then COVID hit. And so what's really exciting for us to see is that they're recreating the events. Like, so there was another one this year in Nashville that was, and there was another one in Austin. They just keep getting together and they keep building on that initial community.
Are you specific around the vehicle?
Well, that's something I wanted to get your advice about, because so it's been just scouts, international scouts. because I don't know if it'll work, like inviting FJ60s and Blazers and Broncos. At all of our events, there's been like one or two Bronco. Like it's like 40 scouts and one Bronco, one FJ40. But as New Legend, we're not just really like a scout company. It's our primary vehicle. But do you think it'll work? Do you think some of that magic will be lost opening it up to, because Toyota people are kind of different than,
I know, right?
But that's Descend on Ben, right? It's like, it's about, so I don't know.
Well, so yeah, I think it's defining what, because Descend is insane for what it is. And that's, and it is about the people. It's about the community of just, camping and being out there, and it doesn't matter what you have. And to that effect, I mean, SyncroFest, people have given me advice like, hey, you should open it up to different vehicles. It's like, that exists. Yes. It is called Descent, or it is called something else. Like, we have something that SyncroFest that is, is just that van, and it's a bunch of guys getting together that have that for that passion. So, and it's not, and it's a different story, right? It's a different reason. Yeah. It's just not another. So I don't know. I can't give you advice on that, but
I don't know.
I mean, maybe it just takes a life of its own.
Yeah, I think we might try it. Like in like a city like Austin, there's such great people there in the scout community, and like what I find is like the newer scout owners are more open to other brands than like the OG IH people.
Well, we have at SyncroFest, we've got a oddball parking lot.
Okay.
So like you can't actually come into the event. You can't come through the gates.
Right.
If you have, unless it's like some other like crazy Volvo, like,
right.
Synchro crazy, gnarly vintage something.
Like there's some rad Mercedes vans that are like from the 70s and 80s.
Oh yeah.
Whatever those are.
Probably. Okay. No, but if you bring up an Odyssey or something like that, you're going to be parking out outside, which is fine. It's like people want to go there and walk around.
What if it's an all-wheel drive Ford Aerostar, 1989?
No.
Okay, those are pretty sweet though.
I know they are sweet, but like those Delicas.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah, sorry, man.
Okay, but they're cool.
No, I think that's a sweet spot with SyncroFest, and like for SyncroFest too. It's not one person. It's not like one,
right.
It's like I've kind of taken over the roles, but it's not about me. It's about the community. Like like the only way that thing runs is the community and volunteers.
Awesome.
Like everybody volunteers.
Yeah.
Like whether you're checking people in or selling stuff or cleaning up or cooking or whatever, and it's awesome. Everybody has a role,
and people love that, man.
They love it. They love the community.
To do.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's transition into, because you're an intentional guy, and I like that about you. You got two boys, 14, 15?
13 and 11.
13 and 11, okay.
Or 12. They always hate that I don't remember their ages.
Yeah.
So I'm probably going to mess it up.
Make me feel better, because I had to ask my wife for my son's birthday the other day. Like, when is Owen's birthday? Can't remember.
They're going to listen to this and be pissed.
Yeah.
No. No, two boys, 11 and 13 right now.
Okay.
I think. 12 and 14, maybe. But yeah.
Okay. So, and I know you've been intentional about like the creating time principle. So I don't know if the manifesto is any of this, but what are some of the driving principles, and is that the manifesto? Because like I know for my family, I'm going to spit off a couple of our kind of, I'm not a guy that's like super into scripting out every aspect of my life. Some people are like that. When I'm 32, I'm going to do this, and then we'll do this. And then, or as parents, like you script out. So we've just run by, here's some principles we want to have as things that we invest in, identifiers to the culture of our family. So what are some of those principles that have driven the way you've tried to raise your, just kind of create a family culture?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think early on, Danae and I both felt like time with our family and time with a family, even before we had kids, was the most important thing. And having creating time to, setting us up for the fact that we want to spend time with these kids, whether it's at home or whether it's on trips or wherever. We just want to pour into them.
Yes.
And spend as much time as possible with them, because someday they're going to be out of the house, and that's going to be sad, but we just need to pour everything into these kids. Yeah. And that comes in many different ways, but that actually started pretty young, just with like an aligned mindset. Like Danae and I both thought that was the most important thing, or one of the most important things, which is also key, I think.
Yes.
Having an aligned mindset.
Oh, good. I like that. Yeah.
That hasn't changed. It's only gotten better and sweeter, but it's I think we've been through, owning businesses, and I own a business with her. She's not I wouldn't say she's an entrepreneur. She's a designer. She's an amazing designer, artist. Would she own a business by herself? A big business? I'm not sure if she has that passion, but she is super creative. And that's where I come in. And so we both set up a business that we both were part of. That means we both knew exactly what was going on with the daily operations. We could both travel together. We could both, cry together because things didn't go well a lot. And so, and then also celebrate together. And so those are the things that kind of driven us. They drove us together. We had kids during that time, and we grew as a family. Through the hardships of those things, and through life, and through pain, and through all those things, those things that we had set early on got better and deeper.
Yeah.
Right? So those concepts got deeper as we move forward. And I think with loss, whether it's a person or a concept or an idea or, something that's precious, that you have, something turns out different. You can go separate ways, or you can go inward and really go through a hard season and come out hopefully better. And I think that's what happened with us. Multiple things happened with the businesses and with family that we love that passed away. But it only drove us, I think, closer to
awesome.
Our kids, and closer to each other and everything else. Not to say it's hard. I mean,
right.
It's hard, right? So where we're at now is a little bit. Yeah, I got my manifesto. I didn't know you were going to bring that up, but it's more of a. It's the funny thing is it kind of came. I've always been a planner. Like I write a lot too, right? So I have been writing since pretty much high school, right? So I'll just write 3 to 4 books a year.
Okay, wow.
And so I'm on, I don't know what it is, 90 something books. And so the concept of getting something on paper, for me,
that's huge.
Yeah, it's huge. And so I can move on. So it's one of those things where I can, that's part of my process is, doing that. And so coming up with kind of this new manifesto was not something I set out to do, but it took me going through some really hard times the last few years to really kind of reset and say, okay, what do I want this next chapter to be?
Right.
Because there was so much success and so much failure, but let's learn from that.
Yep.
And let's take the new chapter and say, okay, what do the next 10 years look like? Right.
And that's a great way to do it, I think, in chapters, because even with kids, I mean, your kids are such a great, visible image of the passing of time and chapter change. And because when they're babies, it's like, that's one chapter, but not like, you're definitely in a what Heather and I, we call like this, the golden years or sweet. It's like this sweet spot of kids. Like when they're young enough, like they're old enough to do stuff, especially as a dad with your boys, like they can ride motorcycles, they can go surfing, go fishing, like whatever. Like you don't have to like pack a diaper bag and watch out that your kid's going to kill themselves.
Yeah.
But it's also like they're before the age of like, because in our family, like, man, it happened with we have 4 kids. 3 of them were almost identical. They're all different within their personalities, but they get their license and they start like
drifting.
I'm going out with my friends, and they have to start creating allowing their identity to be shaped and expressed in the world on their own.
Yeah.
And you want that. That's like you said earlier.
Yeah, you want it.
But it's also hard because it's just change.
Yeah, and you got to be prepared for that.
You got to be prepared. And you have to think differently for each chapter of life. But there are, like, for example, your principle of time, I think, transcends any of those categories, right? Because it'll just look different to go, hey, when my kids are off in college, I still want to spend time with them.
Yeah,
and
I want them to come back. Or
that's right.
I want them to actually want to spend time.
That's right.
And not beg for it.
That's right.
And so, I think that in my mind, I'm thinking that too. Like, we've got just a few more years before they're off. And they're already sort of, I would say the last year and a half, like, oh, let's hang out with our friends, and I'm actually enjoying that part.
Sure.
Because it gives more time for Danae and I. But
Yep.
There's gonna be a point where that's gonna get, like you said, greater and greater and greater. And when they have a car, they'll be off.
Yeah.
And if they go to college or do whatever, it's like, I think one of our youngest will probably be closer to home.
Yeah.
Like our youngest will, just because he's more of a homebody anyway. Like, they're just different personalities. But both of them, we're having so much fun with them right now.
That's awesome.
I mean, it's a blast.
It's
I just
beautiful.
kind of want to stop time and
Right. But with that time principle, because I had a shift where I had to make that part of a principle, because as an entrepreneur, whether it's like, desperation is one thing for money, because time and money often come at a sacrifice. Because your 50-day road trip, I guarantee you, if you stayed home and just poured into the company, you could probably make more money.
I paid for it.
That's right. You paid for it. And so when we moved to Iowa from California, I wasn't really making any money, but the early days of starting the Scout business, I was working, and my wife too, like 16 to 17 hour days, 6 days a week. And I'm like,
for sure.
I did this to provide for my family, but now I don't really have a family. All I have is this business, And so,
and it becomes a child.
Yeah, it's tough, dude. So when we moved to Iowa, that was a thing where I said, like, no, I don't care. I'd rather be broke and invest in my kids and not miss my kids, because you got one shot with your kids.
That's that fine balance. Because and that's the thing with time too, is that, like, I don't want to come off like I was just aware of time, right? And the fact is, we've spent so much time on business. That's right. We're burning, plenty of 20-hour days,
right?
And just going for it. And that's the time where you're like, why am I doing this?
Right.
You can go home, you can have dinner with the kids, and then you're, all you want to do is go
back
to bed.
Right.
But you're just back at it, and that's the shift of time, and that's for me one of my freedom of time. Though I can take a week off, or I can take close to 50 days off, but at the same time, I'm also, when I get home, you're not going to see me for 30 days. Right. And so it's instead of somebody forcing you to like do a 9 to 5,
right,
you're still doing that plus hours, but you're just doing it on your watch,
right,
and your decision. So yeah, but that balance between work and kids shifted a little bit after, because we had a big office down here. We had 38 employees here, and we had, and the one thing I never wanted to do is be defined by my job or by what I want to do, or what I did do. And so this new sort of chapter, this new manifesto was, don't have an office.
Okay, good.
Or if you do have one, make it like this, where it's just kind of a free for all. If you want to come in, that's fine. If you don't, I don't expect you.
Yep.
Work anywhere in the world. Just be the best at what you do. Also, don't expect me to be there. Another one is just less, I don't say babysitting, but like, we want to create a company culture, but at the same time, I don't want to carry that culture anymore. We did that.
Same. Yeah,
we've
that's
been that.
great.
And that's one of those, it was talk about an emotional thing, because you got your whole family, you got your kids, you got your wife, and then you got your employees, and all those emotions and all those, you're caring for all those people all the time. And it's addictive to care for that many people. It's also, you're just cheating people out of your time when it comes down to it. Like, you're cheating your kids out of quality time that you could be giving them. Yeah. And I had to deal with that.
It's hard though, dude. Cause like when the company grows and now all of a sudden you have like 15 employees, 20 employees, and you're like, now you are still responsible for those guys and gals like providing for their families, and you bear that. Like, I hate the narrative of like that, like the business owners are like just profiting, like that their only motive is profiting off the backs of their employees. That's not. I don't know one entrepreneur business owner that has that mentality. Everyone I know, they care about their employees.
Most of my friends that do this are the opposite of that, right? So they put more into the staff than they give themselves.
Yeah, right.
Whether that's money or finances,
For sure.
and everything else. And I think that's the big. I mean, small business, considered a small business, right? You're not publicly traded. You're not $500 million business,
right?
But it's a you have a small business. You care for your employees. You want them to grow. You want to pay them first.
That's right.
And it's hard to pay yourself first at times. It's really hard, but you should.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the things too, is like, make sure the new manifesto is make sure you take care of yourself as well.
Mm-hmm.
Because it is tough to take care of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And you can give emotionally, you can give financially, physically, all those things. And that just wears you out.
Right. And if you crash and burn, as the leader of the company, like then the company, it's bad for everybody.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
But so I mean, other manifesto things, just as they're I like quality over quantity.
Mm-hmm.
So do whatever it does for me. For me, business isn't business is never what it is. It's not the thing you fling. It's the fling itself, right? So
I like that.
You could be doing whatever, but it's the creative side of a business. Like, how do you create a brand?
Yep.
And we did that. I like brands. Like you create a brand, you develop a lifestyle, you create, you're just not making a widget. So that's important to me.
Yep.
So I'd rather sell 100 of something and create 100 of something than 10,000 of something.
Right.
So that's super important. But it could be whatever. To me, it doesn't,
right.
Other than ethical things.
Right.
I'm not going to, if there's a business opportunity, if there's something there and it looks interesting. Yeah.
I love that.
Play around with the ideas, the thoughts of it, and try to break it a lot. I spent a lot of time, which you probably do too, just like looking at different business ideas or looking at different concepts and trying to break that.
Mm-hmm.
Like trying to break the business.
You almost can't not do that.
Oh yeah, you've got to.
As an entrepreneur, I think that's like, you just pick holes and stuff.
And sometimes that you're like, I don't want to deal with this anymore. And you don't do the business or invest or start or whatever. But that's the process. Like you pick one and stick with it.
Yeah.
And I think that's the other thing too, that people get too, distracted and they're like, I'm done with this business. I spent 3 years on it. It's like, no, you need to spend 7 or 10.
Right. Dude, I've been guilty of that.
Yeah. Just bury yourself. And you're right. Like if you're going to fail, get out of it. But if you think that it's not growing fast enough, just spend more time on it.
Yep.
Grow the heck out of it.
Yeah. And just pursue other input from friends and other entrepreneurs. All right. Here's one that my wife and I developed early on. And I heard this from some dude and it really struck a chord with me. And I don't know if any of this is true, but it led to the principle. So in Australia, they have these giant ranches, and they're so big that they can't fence them off. So instead of building fences, they just dig a well, and they have a water source, and that keeps the animals, like the sheep or cattle, close to the water. And so the family principle for us was dig deep, good wells. So rather than saying to your kids, like, no, you can't move there,
write that down.
or you can't do this, like try to fence your kids in.
Yeah.
Go, no,
That's
we're just going to
brilliant.
create great opportunity for you to want to be around us, like you kind of said. And so whether that means, what do you want to do on a trip? Like, where do you want to go? Like, or, so taking their input, or like, hey, what are you dreaming about as an adult? Like, well, mom and I can help you get there.
Yeah.
So trying to orient our finances, everything around, like, so if our girls if they want to start a coffee shop, like we'll be there to help
Yeah.
And that way we can, that's just digging deep wells. Like, so.
I like that. I don't know if that's true. Like
me either.
But I love it. It should be true.
It should be true.
I'm going to use that. I'm going to rip that off.
Yeah, good. Please.
Put it on my list here.
Good. Good.
No, I think it's true. And it's like for us, we want to keep our kids close, but not restrict them.
That's right.
Give them wisdom. I'm always just giving them wisdom, whether they want it or not,
Mm-hmm.
stuff that I either got from my dad or my uncle or
people. That's part of that spring of life, dude. Because like when they go, like my dad cares enough to my mom to tell me wise things, then they go like, hey, I want to be around that wisdom because I see that it's not like
it's so true.
Yeah, it's true.
And they'll rely on those things when they need them, whether they're listening or not. Like
that's right.
And I'm sure they're listening, but when they've got a hardship or they've got something to deal with, they'll be like, okay, what did they say? What did he say? Or But yeah, no, that's so true. With and our last big road trip too, we did with this thing was we got the input. You said that we said, kids, what do you guys want to do? Where do you want to head? Like you guys, like half the trip was them just saying, oh, let's go to here, let's stay here.
Isn't that fun?
And we just
let
awesome. Them kind of drift around too.
I love that.
Yeah, it's cool. And they're going to get these vehicles too.
Right. Same.
Yeah, whether they want them or not, I'm not going to sell it. It's like
that's right.
In fact, the funny one is we were in this van. My two boys were in the back seat. We're headed up to 395, and my youngest Miller was like maybe 5, and he starts getting an argument with his older brother in the back, and he says. And I was like, guys, stop! What's going on? He's like, Miller, my oldest Sutton. He said, Miller thinks he gets this van when you die, and I was like, oh yeah, we had that conversation. You gave it to him, and Sutton's like, I don't remember that. I don't remember that conversation. I'm like, you had the conversation last year and you guys made a deal.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like where he gets the van. And son, I don't know what you got, but out of the deal. But he gets the van, and Miller's my youngest is like 5 years old. He's like, yeah, I get this van. This is my van.
Oh, which one's the old? Which one's Miller? The older?
No, Sutton. Sorry, the youngest is Miller. So it was his.
Wow.
He's like, I claimed it, and you shook on it, Sutton, and the older one's like, I don't remember that, but. Okay. I'm like, I broke it up. I was like, that's actually true. I heard that conversation go on. I don't know what you got. And Sutton's like, well, how about what can I get? He's like, can I get the business? And Danae and I start laughing. We're like, yeah, just take it.
Exactly.
But ends up, long story short, so we're going to give this one to Miller. And then right after that process, I said, we got to get something for Sutton, my oldest. And for us, it's not just buying something.
Right.
It's about creating the experiences around it. Right.
Yes.
So
yeah.
We've had so many miles and so many laughs and so many breakdowns in this thing, and that comes with it. Like that comes with this.
That's right.
That's in his memory.
It does. That's powerful.
And that's he's going to be riding around hopefully with his kids this thing, and all that rich history is going to be in there, and he's going to create new history in it.
EV powered. Electric powered.
Yeah, exactly. But so that was the Doka. So we ended up getting the Doka.
Okay.
Because it was just like, well, we got to create memories. I can't just buy a
That's
car.
Right. Yep. And stick it in a garage. Yeah. Here you go, bud.
Yeah. So Sutton helped pick it out. My oldest helped pick it out. And he, I'm like, I've always wanted a truck, you know, let's figure it out. And so he fell in love with it. And so at home, it's like, we kind of have these two things where I know that when I die, they're going to get these.
Yeah.
And they're going to come, and we get to build these memories with the Doka as well. So we'll go on road trips and everything else. And one road trip.
Yeah. Good.
We want to do is, get a new engine in the Doka.
Mm-hmm.
And in Nashville, there's a guy who's a good friend of mine who puts diesel engines in those things. So we're going to,
because it's a diesel now, right?
It's gas.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It's a 2.1 DJ engine, but it's, we want to, so the concept, I thought about this a few years ago. The engine's still good in the Doka.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no reason to do it, knock on wood. But, drive out with one of the boys out to Nashville and put the new engine in, and then fly that one home, and then have Sutton come out at some point, the one that's going to get the Doka, and then take that road trip home with him. And then we have a road trip, father and son road trip out, and another one home.
Yeah, I love that.
Which would be tons of good memories and everything. So
I haven't tried that.
That's,
like the mid.
You've tried a lot.
The midway switch.
Yeah, the midway switch.
I've not tried that. I like that.
So yeah, I mean it's important. So
it is funny, man. It's like because it's just I've said this many times on the podcast, but it's just like metal and some plastic.
Yeah.
But it's like there's such powerful. I don't understand it. I've not gotten a succinct because I don't think there is one answer of why vehicles. I think I know. I'm honing in on it. But why they're such powerful conduits to memory and experience? Because it's unlike like, oh, my grandma left me this vase.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, great. I got this vase I got to put somewhere.
Yeah.
Or like this set of silverware. But like, they're not the same.
Why? You said you're coming close to an idea.
Well, I think because driving there's a book that you should read called Why We Drive.
Okay.
And it's been helping me understand. He's putting words to the ideas that I've had around why is it such a powerful catalyst, and it's because it's freedom, competence, like laughs, breakdowns, ups, downs, like the places they take you. Like it's not just about this tool, but it really becomes the passion is involved. The community is a part of it. There's all these. I think they're just. Especially vintage vehicles are so good at just creating experiences. Like you said, you want experiences to be tied to the things, you know? And I think that's precisely why they become meaningful to the next generation. So like for your boys, like someday when you're not around, he's going to be like, dude, this thing is like, doesn't completely represent my dad, but it's like they're inextricably tied together.
Yeah. I definitely don't want it to be me.
No, hey, Dad.
But the same, but like those thoughts and those memories, and then the smell. You know, you like there's certain weird, like the visual, the smell, the sense. I mean, when you ride or you drive an old vehicle or ride something old, it's you feel it. Like I feel so much through the gas pedal. Yep. Right, or the brake pedal, or just the noise. Yep. The noise changes.
I think that's another good point.
Yeah. And so and plus it's a good conversation starter. We can pull up anywhere and people are just like, what is this thing? You know? So it's a...
Because think about it, Braden. New cars take many of those things out of the equation. Yeah. They kind of don't really have a smell yet because they don't burn oil. Yeah. Like they don't really, they're quiet. They're just like quiet. Like you can't really see out of them very well. So you see out of a screen to back up. Totally. So that's interesting. Like I've long talked about that. New cars are insulative. Old vehicles are connective. Like they don't insulate you from barely anything. No.
Well, and that's a great. I mean, next level is motorcycle. Like when you're on a motorcycle, you can smell.
But you're by yourself. Like typically,
that's true,
that's part of the thing. Yeah. That makes a vintage 4x4 special. Because I agree with you.
Bring the whole family with you.
Yeah. And you're all experiencing the same sweaty hot. Suffer together, laugh. It's really powerful.
And it is that. You go on a road trip, especially a hot one through the desert, and you have those ups and downs. Like you could have a full cycle in one day of joy. We're leading to, when are we almost there? Are we there? And then it's getting really hot. You know, open the windows. Okay, it's too noisy. You know, heat exhaustion, everything. And then then you're laying in bed at night in the van, and you're like, it was a crazy day.
Yeah, and it feels like had tears, man. Like where it's just like I'm so hot, and then you roll down the windows, and it's like, or if you're just even like the noise, you're right. Yeah. Like rolling down the windows, you don't appreciate, like you don't remember. Yeah. And what's funny, dude, is like all of the generations before us, like that was just normal life for them.
I know, right?
So we're choosing to do it.
Yeah. Like, and I think what about like the Sprinter though? So the Sprinter takes that away too, right? A little bit.
I think so. But it's so epic. It's big.
I love it. No, I mean, it's great. I think it doesn't four-wheel drive as good.
No.
And
they're huge, dude. They're like huge, they're so big, and they're like just. I think they're cumbersome. They're not really agile and nimble, especially like a 170. I'm with you. I haven't made the switch. Like that's why I'm mobbing the Suburban, and like we're going back to the Scout Traveler. And I'm with you. I think. Because we can maybe like putting the modern engine in it takes away some of that, but it still has a lot of the charm, but it's just like you're not it becomes the range becomes farther, the hills you can do more, you can go more places.
I think that's fine. I mean, in my book,
I do too.
It's like this paint job is the original, but new engine, new wiring harness, new suspension. I put an aftermarket AC unit in it.
Does it work?
Yeah.
All right. Awesome.
So there's a lot of modern things, but if you look at this, there's still rust on it.
And it still rattles, dude.
Still rattles.
Yeah.
And so we spent, I think it's okay to like, in my book, it's like,
same here.
Just get the engine done, do a few things with the suspension, modernizing it,
right?
Making it easier for you to drive. Right. It still looks vintage. And if we got a paint job on this thing, I would scrape it up right away, and I'd be mad at myself. So
yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
Well, good, man. That's a good. See, we lost the GoPro. That's why it's redundancy.
And we lost the beeping.
Yeah, dude. Sorry,
man. That was loud.
I hope. And just a quick word to the listeners. Thank you so much for just listening to the show and supporting the show. Thanks to our sponsors. And like one of the things I was telling Braden that's important to me is like we're in his man cave. It's important for me to be in the context of where the life and kind of energy happens, and oftentimes that means there's beeping or there's noises. And so thanks.
Hopefully didn't drown out anything.
Yeah, hopefully like then they go, that beeping's driving me nuts. I'm shutting this off. So, but Braden, thank you very much, man. We'll hope to see you. I got an idea percolating with my buddy Jay. He's got 3 Vanagons, so if we do a small meetup, maybe I'll borrow one of his vans, and he and I will come meet up.
Take the Doka.
Yes, that's awesome. And we'll have to go surf soon.
Today,
if the waves get better.
Yeah.
All right, till next time. Thanks for listening, Braden. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Check it out.